The news headline flashed across my screen. Manila overtakes Mumbai as world's BPO capital. Most saw a business story, numbers, economics, global trends. But I saw a linguistic phenomenon. For years, call centers prized accent neutrality, sounding as American or British as possible. Yet, here was the Philippines, with its distinct English accent, dominating the industry. The old rules didn't fit anymore. I was Dr. Eris Thorne, a linguist in Chicago, focused on American English dialects. I'd watched American English become efficient, flat, and abrupt, losing its musicality for speed. The Philippines' rise suggested something else was at play. The article quoted customer surveys: empathetic, warm, reassuring. Not words for efficiency, but for connection. Customers felt heard and cared for. The key wasn't sounding American, it was sounding kind. Filipino English, often dismissed as non-standard, was winning by connecting on a human level. I booked a flight to Manila that afternoon. My colleagues said it was just about labor costs. That accent was irrelevant. But language is never irrelevant. It's the operating system of human interaction. Every pitch, pause, and word carries meaning. The data screamed a truth. In a world starved for connection, empathy was more valuable than perfect pronunciation. I was going to the Philippines to find the heartbeat of a language I thought had flatlined. This was more than a business story. It was a story about the power of kindness in language, and I was determined to uncover it. My first real encounter with Filipino English was in a Manila taxi. The driver, Manglito, asked, "First time in Manila, sir?" It wasn't just the words, it was the music. His question rose and gently fell, like a melody, inviting conversation. I spent hours listening. Vendors in Quiapo Market, students in cafes, hotel staff, everywhere the same gentle undulating rhythm. The English was perfect, but the prosody, the music, was uniquely Filipino. Soft stress, stretched vowels, a flowing quality, the opposite of the clipped rhythm I knew. This wasn't broken English, it was a sophisticated dialect filtered through a different cultural lens. Filipino English carried community, respect, and gentleness. Rising and falling tones softened requests and built rapport. It was a language designed to maintain social harmony, not just convey information. That evening, the city's sounds blended into a symphony. The English I'd heard was part of it, not imported, but woven into Filipino life. It had learned to sing. My research question shifted. Why was Filipino English so successful? Now, I wondered, how did it become so beautiful? The answer I sensed was in the music of everyday conversation. And I was ready to listen. As a linguist, I began by analyzing recordings, searching for patterns. My hypothesis, the melody came from local languages like Tagalog or Cebuano, but the data only told part of the story. The patterns weren't just phonological, they were psychological. The upward lilt at the end of sentences softened statements, making them collaborative. Commands became gentle suggestions. My skepticism faded, replaced by fascination. I met Dr. Elena Reyes, a sociolinguist at the University of the Philippines. She smiled at my charts. You're looking for the how, but here, the how is always tied to the why. We speak to connect. The melody was a strategy for building relationships, a manifestation of pakikipagkapwa, the Filipino value of empathy. I realized my Western approach was flawed. Filipino English wasn't a deviation, it was its own standard, with its own rules. The goal wasn't just clarity, but kindness. Efficiency was in building trust, not just speed. I was no longer just studying a dialect, I was discovering a philosophy of communication. Here the heart mattered as much as the mind. Dr. Reyes and I launched a research project to map empathy markers in Filipino English. We used EEG scans to measure brain responses to different intonations. The results were groundbreaking. Participants listening to Filipino call center agents showed more brain activity in regions linked to empathy. The melodic tones made people feel understood and cared for. Science confirmed what customer surveys had said for years. Kindness was audible. Dr. Reyes explained that Filipino culture values indirectness and harmony. Language evolved softeners, honorifics, inclusive phrasing, melodic intonation. Requests became gentle suggestions, corrections collaborative. We published our findings. Filipino English wasn't just a regional accent. It was a social tool optimized for emotional connection. It prioritized relationships above all else. Filipino English wasn't broken, it was upgraded, with audible kindness. The world had something to learn from it. Our research uncovered a historical surprise. Filipino English preserved features from older forms of English, like the trilled R in words such as car and hard. This rhoticity was common in 17th and 18th century English, now rare in Britain and softened in America. Dr. Reyes explained, American teachers brought English to the Philippines in the early 1900s, carrying a more musical, articulated version. The Philippines received a linguistic time capsule. While American English flattened, Filipino English preserved its melody and clarity. Vowel distinctions and careful articulation echoed an earlier era. The Philippines became a sanctuary for English's expressive roots. Filipino English wasn't an aberration. It was a legitimate branch of the language. Its musicality was both cultural and historical. The Philippines hadn't just learned English, they'd become custodians of its soul. And that soul was alive in every conversation. To understand Filipino English, Dr. Reyes took me beyond the lab. You can't understand from a spectrogram, she said. It's a core value, seeing yourself in others, fostering shared identity. At a family gathering, I saw it in action, conversations full of grace, listening and gentle humor. Disagreements were handled with indirect language, never confrontation. English was a tool for harmony. Sentences used we instead of I, even in bad news. Sir, it seems we have a small problem. Maybe we can find another way together? The rising intonation turned rejection into collaboration. This was empathy, respect, and community, encoded in language. Filipino English is high context, meaning lives in tone, context, and relationship. In the Philippines, language weaves the social fabric. It's the sound of a community affirming its connections. Our research had to reflect the Philippines' diversity. Dr. Reyes and I traveled from Baguio to Cebu to Davao. Each region added its own flavor to Filipino English. In Baguio, English was softer, more measured, a gentle mountain breeze. In Cebu, it was lively and playful, influenced by Cebuano. In Davao, English blended with local languages, carrying earnestness and respect. A community leader explained, language here is a tool for building bridges and peace. These field trips shattered the myth of a single Filipino accent. Instead, we found a chorus of voices united by empathy. Across mountains and seas, English was localized in sound and spirit. It reflected the diverse yet unified soul of the Filipino people. Filipino English was not just spoken, it was lived, and it was beautiful in every variation. This journey changed me. I arrived as a detached scientist, but Filipino English broke down my academic distance. I began to soften my own speech, listen more, and adopt a melodic intonation. My emails became gentler, my conversations more collaborative. I was learning firsthand. Dr. Reyes told me, we choose kindness in language because it makes the world better, one conversation at a time. I realized language isn't just mechanics, it's moral. It shapes the world we create. My transformation was as profound as my research. I came to study an accent. I left with a new philosophy. The project became a mission to challenge prejudice against Filipino English. I wanted to show the world its emotional intelligence and cultural richness. Filipino English was not inferior, it was extraordinary, and I was determined to share its story. Our work culminated at the International Congress of World Englishes in Manila. The room was skeptical as Dr. Reyes and I took the stage. Our presentation, The Heartbeat of English, Empathy, Prosody, and the Filipino Standard. I presented our data, brain scans, acoustic analysis, historical roots. Dr. Reyes shared stories of and played recordings from across the country. The room grew quiet, not just hearing, but feeling our argument. We played 2 customer service calls, one in flat American English, one by a Filipino agent. The difference was stunning. One cold, one warm and human. You could hear the smile, feel the empathy. The audience's skepticism melted into curiosity and admiration. Linguists from around the world asked how to apply these principles at home. A prominent British scholar said, "You've described a more compassionate way to communicate." We proposed the Manila Declaration on Linguistic Empathy, recognizing Englishes by their effectiveness and richness, not proximity to a native standard. It passed with a standing ovation. The world was finally ready to listen. Filipino English had found its voice on the global stage, and its message was clear. Kindness is the new standard. The story of language had a new chapter, one written in empathy.